President Biden and Vice President Harris are in Atlanta today to stress why they say the passage of federal voting rights bills are crucial to the country's future. More than a dozen Democratic allies are traveling with them from Washington for these speeches. The president is expected to endorse Senate rule changes, which would let them pass legislation on the issue without Republican support. But not everyone in their political party is happy about the visit, saying those who need convincing are in the nation's capital, not Georgia's. CBS News senior White House political correspondent Ed O'Keefe reports.
We haven't seen the type of leadership that we need to see from President Biden.
Cliff Albright is co-founder of the Black Voters Matter Fund, part of a coalition of Georgia groups that say President Biden shouldn't come to Atlanta without concrete plans to pass voting rights legislation.
What we really want to see, given that he came down here, is that he's got an ironclad deal in place. Anything short of that is really going to be disappointing.
The Biden administration is pushing to pass 2 new voting rights bills, and the White House says the president today will call upcoming votes on them a turning point in the nation. In his speech, Mr. Biden will vow to defend your right to vote and our democracy, and will put pressure on the Senate to act. The first bill would establish national election standards by requiring all 50 states to offer at least 2 weeks of early voting, no excuse vote-by-mail options for every voter, a national voter ID standard, and same-day voting registration. Republicans generally oppose the bill.
They also want same-day registration, and that's just very difficult for any election official to manage. And I think that undermines trust in elections.
The second bill would update the 1965 Voting Rights Act and force states with a history of discrimination to clear any potential changes to election laws with the Justice Department. Republican Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says the bill overreaches.
This is a bill to turn the partisan attorney general into a national elections czar.
So with no Republican support, the voting rights legislation can't survive a filibuster vote. That means any debate over voting rights is first going to be about potentially changing Senate rules. The White House says the president today will reiterate support for changing the rules by allowing bills to pass with a simple majority.
I support making an exception on voting rights for the filibuster.
But Albright says the president needs to fight harder.
He's got to give complete, unequivocal support, demand and call for filibuster reform.
CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion is following the latest on Capitol Hill. Nikole, these changes will require support of 2 Democratic holdouts and have urged caution over filibuster reform. Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, do we know what their thoughts are on the filibuster, if they've changed at all?
Well, the short answer, Drika, is no, they haven't. Both support keeping the filibuster in place. They feel that this is something that is really a defining element of the Senate in terms of how it rules and orders itself. And so, they support keeping the institution as it is with respect to that. That being said, Senator Manchin in particular has expressed an interest in potentially changing the Senate rules to make things function a little bit better here. And so that is where Democrats see some wiggle room, that perhaps if they can convince Senators Manchin and Sinema to support these rules changes, then that could open the door potentially to move forward with voting rights legislation. The issue is that Senator Manchin has said that he would prefer some buy-in from Republicans. He doesn't necessarily want to do this unilaterally. And, up until now, Republicans have been very resistant to make any types of changes to the rules. Also worth noting that both Senators Manchin and Sinema do support both pieces of voting rights legislation that you heard mentioned in Ed's piece, the Freedom to Vote Act, as well as the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Both of them are sponsors of the legislation. So again, while they support the legislation as a whole, how it moves forward, whether or not the rules should be changed, is still subject to a lot of debate here on Capitol Hill.
And Nikole, as you know, filibuster rules in the Senate have been modified before, including a few years ago on the Supreme Court nominations and more recently to raise the debt ceiling. Give us a brief history of the filibuster reform.
Well, there's been, some form of filibuster, some form of a filibuster, I should say, for decades, really. But we've really seen things accelerate probably within the last 50 years or so, with it being used more frequently by both parties. And of course, many people remember the filibuster of the late Strom Thurmond. That was historic in the sense that it was the longest filibuster ever, where he blocked a vote on the Civil Rights Act. So, that is kind of what many Democrats hearken to in terms of, some of the obstruction they see by Republicans now, is that they don't want to see a repeat when it comes to something that they feel is so critical in terms of trying to pass something that essentially protects Americans' rights to vote. However, Republicans have countered, saying that they feel that Democrats are trying to federalize, elections, that should be up to state and local officials. So that has been the ongoing debate here in the Senate. And so as far as changing the filibuster going forward, some potential options have included going back to that traditional talking filibuster that Strom Thurmond did, that other lawmakers have done in the past, where they literally have to hold the floor. So that is one idea that is on the table. Another thought is to again change the rules in such a way that you would only need a smaller number of senators to move forward with legislation, as opposed to requiring this 60 vote threshold. And so whether that's a simple majority or doing some type of carve out, again, those are some of the ideas that are under consideration.
And 13 Congress members and senators, including 6 from Georgia, are traveling right now with the Biden administration to Atlanta. What do you think they're hoping to accomplish by being there and obviously showing their support to the president?
Well, I think in terms of the White House, they want to project unity. They want to show, project a sense of confidence in terms of trying to move forward with this. Certainly a lot of the members who will be with the president are members of the Congressional Black Caucus, who have really led the fight on voting rights legislation, both in the House and here in the Senate. And, they believe that it is a fierce urgency of now, something that needs to be addressed, particularly as states complete, their redistricting processes, ahead of the midterms. So there really is a short window and timetable to try to get something done if Democrats are trying to advance this. And so that's why you're seeing them move so rapidly on this, even though at the same time, some would argue they've moved too slow, in the sense that this is legislation that has cleared the House, months ago, and is still, finding obstacles here in the Senate. But again, without action in the next couple of weeks, Democrats are concerned is that, these types of changes won't be able to take effect in time for the upcoming midterm. So more or less, this is just a show of support with the president and really to try to give this legislation some momentum as the Senate prepares to take it up.
And obviously doing it, too, a week before we honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Nikole Killion, thank you.
You bet.